Hello! Today I wanted to make a video, a review about Cassandra Clare's new book, Lady Midnight. Can I just say I love the cover. It's so pretty. It's probably one of the best covers we've had just because it's just so pretty. This review will have spoilers in it, so if you have not read the book and you don't want to know what happens, click out, go read the book, and come watch this later. I read this book pretty fast. I read it all this weekend because I was really excited, which probably wasn't the smartest idea because now I have to wait a year and a half until the next one, but it was worth it because I really loved it. To start off, I think honestly this is probably one of my favorite Cassandra Clare books because I've read all the Shadowhunter series and I love every single one, but this one, it was a little bit different than the other books and I really liked that. So one of the first things I want to talk about is one of the main characters, Julian Blackthorn. Honestly, he's probably one of my favorite characters she has ever written. He was just so kind and strong, and the way he took over being in charge and like taking care of his siblings when he was 12, and he took that on, he took that responsibility on, and he cared for them and he loved them more than anything in the world. And I just thought that was so amazing of him, and it was that was his character, was that caregiver. And like he did the same thing, like even towards Emma, he wanted to just care for her and take care of her even if she needs it a little bit less than his siblings do. So honestly, I think Julian is probably one of the best characters Cassie has ever written in, and one of my favorite characters to read about, because he was just, I just loved him. I want him to be okay in the end. I really do. As for the other Blackthorns, I loved all the siblings too. Even though they're minor characters, they're very vital to the story, especially for Julian, and that is why he does most of the stuff that he does, is to protect those kids. First, I think the oldest are the twins, which is Ty and Libby? I can't remember. Which is weird. I just read 700 pages and I can't remember. But they were really cool. I especially loved Ty because he's got sort of a mystery around him that we don't really know who he is or what he is. He's a little bit different. They say that throughout the novel, that he's sort of a different sort of Shadowhunter. And I think my theory is that maybe he has a sort of autism or like maybe Asperger's or something along those lines, because that's sort of how he acts, is he doesn't like to make eye contact. He sort of, is really nervous with his hands and all that. So I think it'd be very interesting to show that sort of diversity in the book, and that Shadowhunters aren't all these perfect, angelic people. They're people with, different sorts of ways of thinking. They're not all the same, like soldier from birth. He's a little bit different, and I really like that. And then Drew was really cool because, one, I love the name Drusilla because of the character in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because I always really liked her in there. So having that name was really cool. And she was younger. She was 13, and I liked throughout the book, there was a few times that, like in Emma's mind, she would mention that, she was a little fuller, she looked more grown up than she was, and like she was curvier, and people would say things to Drew and Drew would repeat them, and Emma would be like, that's not true, just because you look different, you're still beautiful. And I liked that about Emma and about the message Cassie was putting out, which was really cool. And then the youngest sibling is Tavi. I think that's how you say it. But he was really sweet. He was a sweet little kid. And obviously he's a big part in the story in the end, in the climax, and he does bring in the story of Lady Midnight. He introduces that to them and helps them figure that all out. So yeah, I love the Blackthorns, and I love how Emma fits in with the Blackthorns too, because even though she's not one, she's a Carstairs, she finds her place in there pretty easily. And then the last Blackthorn that is, there's Helen Blackthorn too, but she is in exile right now, but I hope that we do get to see her come back in one of the next two books. That'd be really interesting. But the other one that makes an appearance in this book is Mark Blackthorn, which I didn't really expect, to be honest, because I remember reading about Mark in City of Heavenly Fire, I think, and he was, a sweet kid, but I didn't have much opinion on him. But when he comes back, it was a very interesting like arc for him, because he comes back and he's so confused because in the fairy world, so like time like passes differently, and so he's not used to this, and he thinks, he was like, I left my siblings young. I mean, when he left, Tavi was 2 and Julian was 12, and so he's like shell shocked and by that, and it was a very interesting journey to see him like develop and like get past that. That was very interesting. And then his story with the Fae Prince, Kieran is how I pronounced it. That might be completely wrong. I don't know. It was, I mean, Fae names are pretty interesting. That at first I was like shipping him with Christina, and then they introduced Kieran, and I'm like, I like them both, but in the end, Kieran sort of betrayed them with the scene with Emma and Julian and the whipping, so that was bad. I think in his own way, Kieran really did love Mark, but not in a real way, in a way that they were the only 2 people there, and they were the only 2 people that really cared about anything. So I'm interested to see. I'm sure this isn't the last we've seen of Kieran, and I think that'll be a problem for Mark later. The other person in the Institute is Christina Rosales, maybe pronouncing that right. She was really cool. I really liked her. If I were to see myself in any of these characters, I would probably see myself the most in her, just because she was very reserved and very calm, and she just wanted everything to go right kind of thing. And I thought it was cool that we got to see a Shadowhunter from the Mexican Institute. That was really cool. And when she would speak Spanish, I would see if I could understand it by reading it, because I'm in level 4 of Spanish, so I understood most of what she said. And same with Diego when he came, Perfect Diego. When he would speak Spanish, I'm like, I think I understood what you just said without even, having to read the translation directly after it. But Christina was definitely really cool. She's one of my favorites. And she works really well with Emma, which I like. And speaking of Emma, she is the main character in this story, and I really like her. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a little afraid that, because it's also in present time, that she would be too much like Clary. Like, I didn't have that problem going from Clary to Tessa, because they're both not Tessa's not a Shadowhunter, and she was, put back in time, and there was a lot of different things that would make them different. And I was afraid Emma would be too much like Clary, but she's not. She's a lot more, I don't even know, but she was, right off the bat, she was snarky. When she was breaking up with Cameron Ashdown, I think his name is, on the phone, she was, like, listening to him, and then she'd, like, pick it up and be like, it's not you, it's me. It was really funny. So I already liked her, like, right off the bat. She was funny, and she fights for what she believes in, and she's very strong-willed in that way. And you don't see her break quite in this book. There's a few times where you see her wall sort of come down, but for the most part, she held it together. And the only times you do see her sort of break down, it's with Julian, which leads into the idea of Julian and Emma. Now, Julian and Emma are parabatai, so that in the shadow world, that is like as forbidden as it gets. Like, you cannot fall in love with your parabatai, which later we find out that's because there's a parabatai curse. Thanks, Jim, for telling us that. But I love them so much, and I don't know how they're gonna get like around to this curse thing. Or, I mean, I know Jim told them, but is, like, what proof is there of the curse really being real? I don't know. Like, I know she had the problems with, like, the runes getting really, really strong, or, like, how she healed Julian in the car, which is one of my favorite scenes. But I don't know. I don't know if it's real, or if it's something just to keep things from happening. Or, like he said, when 2 parabatai fall in love, their power gets even stronger. And he says it will corrupt that power will corrupt the mind. But, I mean, what if it doesn't for Jules and Emma? We don't know. But I loved their scenes together, and I loved the emotion between the two, because they've both felt so much for each other for so long, yet they both sort of pushed it down because they're like, oh, this is wrong, we can't feel this way. And then, it all comes out on the beach, obviously, which is one of my favorite scenes in the whole book. And I just think they were very, all of a sudden, open with each other, and they really did love each other. And even Emma didn't say it out loud, but she said something like, I love you more than the stars. and I just thought that was so sweet. I love them together so much, and I really hope they end up together in the end, happy like they deserve, and I don't know how that's going to happen. Maybe there's some way to break the parabatai bond and they can be together instead, or they can find a balance to be parabatai and in love at the same time. My other favorite scene with them is when he shows her the art room. That was really beautiful. I loved that. All the paintings of her and the way he described, and he said something like, he said, if you could see my heart, it would be made of paintings, and this would be the paintings. It would be all of you. And I'm like, oh, they're so sweet. I love them so much. And then one of the biggest parts at the end, well, the big climax is they were trying to figure out who killed Emma's parents and then who was killing all the humans and downworlders in Los Angeles. And it was Malcolm in the end, the High Warlock of LA, which I did not expect, so thank you, Cassie, for keeping me on my toes. I didn't know who I thought it was going to be. To be honest, I kind of thought it was Diana, the tutor for the Institute, but I think she can be trusted, but I think she has some secrets to tell that we don't know yet. But it was Malcolm, which was very unexpected, and I felt so betrayed because he was so close with the kids, and for all those years he'd helped Julian with Uncle Arthur, and he was so nice to the kids, and I did not expect it to be him, at all. But I mean, the way he explained his story, it made sense. He felt bad and he felt betrayed by the Shadowhunters, even though, he said he felt betrayed by Tessa and Magnus, and I think Katrina Loss was the other one he listed. But none of them even knew. They didn't really betray him. They believed the lie just like he did. And I think the problems he had with the Blackthorn family back in the day are the same problems people are going through now with the Cold Peace and the Shadow World sort of pushing out the fairies and punishing them all for the act of just, some of them. I mean, yeah, the Seelie Queen and a lot of her followers were on the wrong side in the Dark War, but they don't need to all be punished. And I'm sure that'll be addressed plenty. One of the other things I loved was throughout the novel seeing Tessa and Jem, because I love them so much, and I'm so excited for Tessa's second series with Tessa and Will and their kids, which will be so amazing. I love them. Because anyone who has read The Infernal Devices, you know that, you ship Tessa with Will just as much as you ship Tessa with Jem. It's impossible to choose. At least it is for me. So, it's good to see Tessa and Jem all these years later sort of being able to be happy, and because they both deserve it. They both have been through a lot, and I love seeing Jem with Emma too, because he's her, great-great-great-grandfather, or at least their family. That's not a direct line, but that it makes me happy to see them, and at the end, Tessa and Jem show up out of nowhere to find the lost Herondale, which I think is part of Simon's mini stories, which I haven't read all of yet, so I have to go and read those. But let's just talk about Kit right now, because I flipped out. I did not expect that, because when the book opened with Kit, and then he wasn't really part of the story too much, I'm like, why would they introduce this character if he's not going to be a big deal? But then he was a big deal in the end. He is the lost Herondale, so Jace does have some family, but I think Kit is going to stay in the LA Institute, and I think he's going to play a big part in whatever story does go down. And it was very interesting. And I'm interested to see the friendship or the relationship, whichever, that will come to be between Kit and Ty, because I feel like they have a connection in some way, whether they decide to be parabatai, which I don't think they will. It's a possibility, but I think that would break Ty's twin, his sister. I think it would break her heart. But I think they have an interesting bond, and I'm interested to see how that plays out. And then after the last chapter, there's an epilogue, which is just 2 paragraphs, which killed me, because the whole point of Malcolm doing all the murders and orchestrating all that is that he wants to bring back his love from the dead, Annabelle Blackthorn. And they were like, oh, they stopped him before he could. Stopped him. We don't know if he's really dead. and well, he somehow he brought her back anyway, and so she's alive, and I don't understand how. And like the epilogue is just her like waking up in her coffin and like coming back to life, and I'm like, how and why? And is she going to be good? Is she going to be bad? Because like she's a Blackthorn, so why wouldn't she just help, you know, the Blackthorns? But she also probably feels pretty betrayed by the Blackthorns because, you know, they killed her, so that's upsetting. And if Malcolm really is dead and she comes back and she finds out that they killed him, she's probably going to be angry. And, I mean, if she's back from the dead, but does that mean she's completely back? Like, maybe she came back without a soul, with, like, Season 6 Sam Winchester. I don't know. But that's gonna be probably pretty stressful. And then in most, I think it's in all the copies of the new book, there's the mini-series, or the mini-story at the end, with all of our Mortal Instruments characters that we love and know. And Simon and Isabel are engaged to be married, and I like screamed at that part, I swear, because I love Simon and Isabel so much, and to see them happy is just, it makes me happy, because first of all, to see Simon finally adjusting to his life as a Shadowhunter, oh, it makes me so happy. I love them so much, and I think they're really going to be happy. Honestly, I didn't expect them to get married anytime soon. I thought they would just be sort of together forever, but I should have expected Izzy would want, like, you know, a big wedding with all the eyes turned on her. So I'm really excited for that. And within that story, you also see Magnus and Alec have adopted a second child. I haven't read the story where they adopt the first, Max, yet. I think that's in the Shadowhunter Chronicles with Simon and all that. But they have a little warlock baby, Max, who's I think like 2 or 3, and he's adorable. I love Magnus and Alec so much. And then now they've adopted Raphael, Shadowhunter, who's like 5, and I'm excited for him too. They're so great together. They're great parents. So that's really cute. And then also in this, Jace proposes to Clary, which, I mean, I know we've all been waiting for a long time, because they have been through a lot and they deserve to just be happy. And we don't get to see Clary actually answer, but I'm gonna go ahead and say she's probably gonna say yes. And if she did say no, it would be like, no, but maybe later. But I feel like she'll probably say yes. Those are my thoughts on Cassie's new book. I've read it really fast, and I probably should have taken my time and, you know, appreciated it and, you know, bid my time so I didn't have to wait so long for the next one. But I read it in 3 days instead, and I'm okay with that because it was really good and it made me really happy and I loved it so much. And honestly, it's probably one of my favorite books Cassie has written, and I tweeted about it last night and she tweeted me back, and I may or may not have cried about that because she is one of my favorite authors. She's definitely one of the biggest inspirations as a writer to me. If my books were anything like hers, I would be totally fine because I love them. And yeah, so that is my review, just sort of my thoughts and my predictions, and I'd give it 10 out of 10 stellaes because I finally learned how to pronounce that word through the Shadowhunter show, which has been renewed for season 2, which is really great. So plenty more about the Shadowhunter world coming to my channel. As always, follow me on Instagram at spiritmc_meetsworld for more fun stuff about the Shadow World and Shadowhunters and lots of other fandoms. And like, share, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff on my channel here, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye!